Okay, so hello and welcome to the live stream today with the Third Testament Foundation. We're going to talk a little bit about the Lotus Sutra and try to use the Third Testament terminology to explain some excerpts from the Diamond Sutra. And we're gonna get into using some of the symbols here, and all the symbols are copyright of Continuous Institute. We're gonna use this one and this one and this one. So and if you have any questions, you're welcome to text or leave a voice message on 1941-462-3177. So before we go into the Diamond Sutra, let me just briefly explain this symbol that consists of these three smaller parts, x1, x2, and x3. So when we put them on top of each other, we get this, which is basically the universe. It's called the eternal will picture. And basically we have the white, which is eternal, and the which is also called x1, and then we have the 6 colors, which is the temporal world, which is created, right? And that is the world of form. x3 is the world of form. x1 is the world of formlessness, namelessness, and thus eternal. It's eternal, right? It doesn't have a beginning and an end, but the world of form, all forms have beginnings and ends, and that's why they are temporal. And then we have the x2, which is the creative power. And when we put these three together, we see there are little holes in this creative power, and that it gets filled up with this white eternal x1, right? Which is something that is, it's undefined, nameless, formless, and that shines through these all little holes in a violet disk, and those are actually living beings at different stages in evolution. And we see the 6 colors. Just briefly, we can see that there are 6 colors in the world of form, and they each represent a kingdom. If we start down here, it's the mineral kingdom with the light indigo color, and then the red is the plant kingdom, the orange is the animal kingdom, and the yellow is the real human kingdom. And then there's this transition between the two, orange and yellow, and that is the kingdom in which we are situated right now as human beings. We're kind of like a sphinx going out of the animal kingdom into the real human kingdom. And we see how the planet is right here in evolution, going counterclockwise towards the star representing cosmic consciousness, or the stage of consciousness or evolution where we are at one with God. And I know that in Buddhism they don't have the concept of God, but I'm going to try to explain actually that there is this concept of God. It's just not called God in Buddhism because it is actually x1. So we can say that x1 is God, x1 is the eternal, where we are all one. So that's kind of like the concept of one mind in Buddhism. So just the last 2 kingdoms here is the kingdom of wisdom, green color, and the kingdom of intuition, or the divine world, symbolized by the blue color. And we see that this star, it also appears in this symbol here. You can see that there is this star here, or actually it's up here. See this star? And that symbolizes the same stage of evolution, cosmic consciousness, where we are day conscious aware that we are in fact one with God, or in fact that we are at our core eternal. And every being will eventually reach that state in evolution. We see that it's right here where the orange stops and the yellow begins, which is the same thing in this symbol, where the orange stop and the yellow begin, where we see kind of like here's a little more tapering off of the orange, but it's where the yellow is about 2/3 in this one here. So that's the same evolutionary stage, and we also see it in this symbol. See the star here, and this evolutionary stage that again represents the same evolutionary stage or level of consciousness, cosmic consciousness, the fact that we are day conscious aware that we are one with God. In fact, all living beings are always one with God, but we're not always day conscious aware that we are one with God or one with the eternal. Or we have the one mind. We're not always aware of that day consciously. We see here the yellow is all yellow, and how the yellow has, or the orange has tapered off. The animal kingdom has tapered off, and the yellow, symbolizing love energy, feeling energy, has taken over here and dominating. So this is where we are in the real human kingdom of all yellow, which is again here, all yellow, right here, where the star is. But most people are not in the all yellow yet. Most people are on this planet here going towards here. Of course, there are some beings that are more evolved than the planet are in its evolutionary spiral cycle, or its path in evolution, going towards the star here and continuing around this spiral cycle. So there are beings that are here in evolution and just before the star, and less here and more here. Most people, according to Martinez, are actually in these two middle stages right here. If you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, most people, the masses, are in these number 3 and 4 stages here, where you see the orange is tapering off a little bit here, so we get more yellow than orange. And few people are over in this last two sections, and very few people are here where the star is. Martinez, he experienced cosmic consciousness, and he was day conscious aware that he was in fact one with God, one with the eternal, that is at the core of all living beings. And I believe Gautama Buddha was also here in this evolutionary stage. And Christ, of course, was there, Jesus Christ. So I'm not sure that any other beings on the planet actually experienced this cosmic birth. There might be, but we haven't heard of them. So it's very rare to be in this level of evolution. And that's why we're going to take a look at the Diamond Sutra, because this was the words from one who was here, allegedly, here, and this evolutionary stage 2,500 years ago. And I'm just going to briefly read some of the excerpts of it, and I'm going to start actually with the ending. And before we do that, let me just explain. There are some concepts in this Diamond Sutra that's used in the Buddhism. Dharma, for example, in Buddhism is the nature of reality. So the nature of reality regarded as a universal truth taught by the Buddha. So Buddha explains how the reality is, and that is then the teaching of Buddhism. So Dharma is the teaching of Buddhism, whatever the Buddhist, the Buddha said, right? The Dharma, that's the Dharma. How things are seen from this very high evolutionary stage where the being has cosmic consciousness and is enlightened. And the term enlightenment, or also supreme perfect enlightenment, it's in the original text called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, which is, it means here it's a Sanskrit word meaning unexcelled complete enlightenment, which is an attribute of every Buddha. Supreme perfect enlightenment. It is the highest, correct, and complete or universal knowledge or awareness, the perfect wisdom of a Buddha, the unsurpassed, proper, and equal correct enlightenment of a Buddha. It's the enlightenment. So it's a little more interesting definition of enlightenment. And I would say that in our understanding, if we use the Third Testament terminology, that enlightenment is here cosmic consciousness, like symbolized by the star that I just showed you in the three symbols. So, Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, the unsurpassed, equally perfect enlightenment. Anuttara means unsurpassed. Samyak is derived from the stem samyak, which means same or identical. So that's like the X1, it's identical, same. There's in X1 it's eternal, that's why it's identical or same. Sambodhi means perfect enlightenment. Equally, or that this same identical thing, X1-ness of it, means that the perfect enlightenment of all Buddhas is the same. So that means that I have wakened up to the being day conscious aware of being one with the eternal, or what we call in the Third Testament the God source. So, and that's also the third epithet of Buddha is Samyak Sambuddha, the equally perfectly enlightened one. So when we read enlightenment, it's this Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, which is this perfect enlightenment, but there's a lot more to it. So it's, if we define it as how I think it should be defined, as this cosmic consciousness, which is again being day conscious aware that we are in fact one with the eternal, or God source, or Godhead. You know, it's nameless, but people call it different things. Then there's this, I used to call it Tathagata, but here it says it's called Tathagata. So this is an honorific title of a Buddha, especially the Buddha Gautama, which is the person who which words is written down in the Diamond Sutra, or a person who has attained perfection by following Buddhist principle. So basically, a Tathagata is just another synonym for one who has cosmic consciousness, or has reached this here, this star, right? This evolutionary stage. And interestingly, when we see this evolutionary stage here, the star again, symbolizing cosmic consciousness, or Tathagata, or one who has Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, or perfect enlightenment, it actually means that, you see this little corner symbol on the left? It actually means that the being here has this perfect enlightenment, or cosmic consciousness, is able to perceive the eternal as well as the created reality. One without it, here number 2, this is number 3, has cosmic consciousness, or perfect enlightenment, Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Number 2 has an ordinary consciousness, and the being here, every time you see a triangle, it's a living being in the Third Testament terminology. So the being here in 2 is only able to see created reality, or the world of form. The being with cosmic consciousness, or perfect enlightenment, is able to see the world of form as well as the eternal, the formless. nameless, eternal, unutterable one, that which we cannot say what it is. It's undefined, unmanifest, and it's that's why we cannot give it a name. So Martinus calls it X1. It's a nameless variable. So it is not created. It doesn't have a beginning, and therefore it never ceases. No end. But in the world of forms have beginnings and ends, and that's why they're temporal, and that's why X1 is eternal, because there's no beginning of X1. It was always there and will always be there, and that's what we also call God in the Third Testament. So let me just start reading a little bit in the Diamond Sutra. We see here if we start down here, then the world-honored one uttered this Gata. If any one by form sees me, by voice seeks me, this one walks the false path and cannot see the Tathagata, the Tathagata. So in other words, what does this mean? Well, that means if you don't have cosmic consciousness, you can only see the forms, right? You cannot see the formlessness behind the form. And also the voice is something created, right? If we seek the Buddha or well, we can say God source, or if you seek that eternal, if you seek the eternal by form or by voice, by something created, then it's a false path, because you cannot find it there. X1 is not in the forms, right? It is formless. And then you cannot see the Tathagata. So then you cannot see the Buddha, then you cannot see the one who has cosmic consciousness. So Subhuti, that's the name of the elder who's talking to Gautama Buddha here. Subhuti, if a man should declare that the Tathagata, let me just pronounce this right. Tathagata. Okay. So Subhuti, if a man should declare that the Tathagata is the one who comes, or goes, or sits, or lies, he does not understand the meaning of my teaching. Why? The Tathagata does not come from anywhere and does not depart to anywhere. Therefore, he is called the Tathagata. So that is like the X1. It does not come from anywhere. It's not created. And it does not depart to anywhere. It does not end. It never ceases, right? It's eternal. How does a man expound it for others? Like, how do we explain X1 to others? How do we explain the eternal, the God source, to others? When one is not attached to form, it is of suchness remaining unmoved. Why? So, in the Third Testament, we also say that X1 is the still point. It's not moving, and everything else is moving. The forms are movement. X1 is the stillness. So this is like the eternal being, the fixed point, the only fixed point of the entire universe. And that is what it is. It is something that is, right? That's the suchness of it. That's the only thing we'd say about X1. It is something that is, and that's the suchness of it. Because if we try to define it, we fail. We cannot define something that's unmanifest. So, how does a man expound it for others? When one is not attached to form, it is of suchness remaining unmoved. Why? All composite things, X3, are like a dream, a phantasm, a bubble, and a shadow. All composite things are like a dewdrop and a flash of lightning. They are thus to be regarded. So they have beginnings and ends, right? A dewdrop or a flash of lightning, they're just there and then they're gone. So let's just go to the beginning and let's see. I'll take a little excerpt, and this is the D.T. Suzuki version from 1935. And though thus beings, I'm just taking the highlights here. Though thus, or in this way, beings immeasurable, innumerable, and unlimited are emancipated, there are in reality no beings that are ever emancipated. Why, Subhuti? If a bodhisattva remains, if a bodhisattva, and a bodhisattva, that's kind of like a disciple who follows the teaching of the Buddha, and reveres the precepts and does the things. So it's basically a disciple of someone who is on the path, practicing the path to enlightenment, right? So why, Subhuti? If a bodhisattva retains the thought of an ego, a person, and a being or a soul, he is no more a bodhisattva. So what is important here? You see that if a bodhisattva has a thought of an ego, if you have a thought of an ego or a person or a being or a soul, then you're in the world of form, right? X3. Then you cannot see X1, the eternal, because you're identified with a form-based identity. An ego is a form-based identity because an ego has a beginning and an end. A body has a beginning and an end. If you identify with your body, you're not emancipated, or a person or being or soul, because they have beginnings and ends. He's no more bodhisattva. You need to be, identified with the formless or the eternal or the God source, the X1 at the core of your being, which is also at the core of all other beings. So that is symbolized by the white. See here, we have the white at the core of a being here. When you identify with that, then you're identifying yourself with the eternal or the formless nature of who you are. The God source spark in you, and then you're able to perceive not only X3 and X2, but also X1, and not only X3, like you're here. You're not enlightened here. You see there's no sun or no sun shining or light shining out from this one. You're only able to see the world of form, or X3. On this level, you can see there's enlightenment, right? There's a light shining out from this living being, and you are able to see X3 and X2 and X1, able to perceive all of reality. So being here, right, this evolutionary stage, again here, this stage here, or in this symbol right here, this stage here, so the Buddha said to Subhuti, all that has a form is an elusive existence. That's because all that has form is an X3. It has a beginning and an end, right? It doesn't last. It's not eternal. When form is perceived, or when it is perceived that all form is no form, the Tathagata is recognized. So when it's perceived that all form is no form, you're day conscious, aware that you are one with God source. In other words, when you can perceive that all form is no form, then you're actually here, right? I'm not quite sure about this one yet. If you perceive all form as non-form. So I think it's because you're here and you're perceiving all form as a no form. It's because you're perceiving all the forms as no form. Simultaneously, you're perceiving x1, x2, and x3, not just x3. So here you're perceiving forms as form. But here you can see that the core of all forms, in fact, are the formless. x1, eternal core of yourself, where you're one with the God source. So the interesting part is that all living beings, as you can see, by definition is one with God source, because they're all this white circles here, right? They're all the living beings in the universe. They are one with God. They're one with x1, which is the eternal. But not until we have this star happening in our life, which means we reach this evolutionary stage where we attain cosmic consciousness, but nobody really attains it. It's just that we wake up to the fact that we are, in fact, eternal at our core, which means we become day conscious, aware that we are at one with God, which we always were, but we were not day conscious, aware of this fact. So this is the waking up part, where we have cosmic consciousness. He also calls it cosmic clairvoyance. It's the ability to see everything the way it is, and that's, I think, in Buddhism is the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, or the Supreme Enlightenment, and that's what we call a person who has cosmic consciousness is called a Tathagata in Buddhism, right? So, because all these beings are free from the idea of an ego, a person, a being, or soul, they are free from the idea of a dharma as well as from that of no dharma. So, dharma means teaching, yeah? I looked it up, and it says it's a teaching. In Buddhism, the nature of reality regarded as universal truth taught by the Buddha, the teaching of Buddhism. So, I mean, the Third Testament would be Dharma too, right? So if we talk whatever we read in the Third Testament, we say that is the Dharma of Martinus. That's the teaching of Martinus. So here, because all these beings are free from the idea, because all these beings are free from the idea of an ego, which is form-based, a person, a being, or a soul, and also a body, I would say an ego. In some translations you see a body and instead of ego. So basically, Martinez also says that the physical body is a false sense of center in the perspective, because it's a form-based identity, right? It's a false sense of center in the perspective. So we see here, because all these beings are free from the idea of an ego, person, being, or soul, they are free from the idea of teachings, as well as from that of no teachings. Why? Because if they cherish in their minds the idea of a form, they are attached to an ego, a person, a being, or soul, or a body. If they cherish the idea of a dharma, or teachings, they are attached to an ego, a person, a being, or soul. Why? It's because they see, I know so much of this dharma, I know this teaching, and I can explain it to you, and you know. If they cherish the idea of no dharma, they are attached to an ego, a person, a being, or soul. So that's if they cherish the idea of no dharma, or say, I don't know any dharma, right? That's also an idea, but that's the idea of no dharma, or no teaching. Therefore, do not cherish the idea of a dharma, or teachings, nor that of a no dharma. For this reason, the Tathagata always preaches thus, O you Bhikshus, that's monks, or the followers. Oh, you followers, know that my teaching is to be likened unto a raft. Even a dharma is cast aside, much more a no dharma. So this is kind of interesting. You can use what the Buddha said, like it's kind of like if you build a house, you need uh, something around the house when you build it, but then you can take that down when you're done. So it's like a raft. You can get from one side to the other side, right? But then once you're on the other side, you don't need the raft anymore. Subhuti, what is known as the teaching of the Buddha is not the teaching of the Buddha. And that's kind of, you think of it, but that doesn't make sense. But it's because that the teaching of the Buddha is coming from the eternal. And once that's in the world of form, it's no longer eternal. So then it's no longer the teaching of the Buddha, because then it's in the realm of form, right? So, and then there's a lot of, it's a short sutra, but it's very deep. There's some very deep things in here. World Eye 1, what is known as a true idea is no idea. And for this reason, it is called a true idea. So that's kind of a little bit the same. What is known as a true idea? If it's true, it comes from someone with cosmic consciousness, right? True idea. But then it's not an idea, because its idea is in the world of form. And for this reason, it's called a true idea. So a true idea is formless, right? So it's kind of like your words cannot really reach this, because it's really wordless, nameless. When its true reality is, eternal. So you can't really. Eternal doesn't have a form; it's formless. So you can't really use words to explain this, because words are forms. So here, therefore, the Buddha teaches that a bodhisattva is not to practice charity by dwelling on form. Subhuti, the reason he practices charity is to benefit all beings. The Tathagata teaches that all ideas are no ideas, and again that all beings are no beings. Basically, beings are formless, eternal beings. And let's see, I think we're pretty much done. And then we go back to the beginning here. Then the Buddha one uttered this gata: if anyone by form sees me, by voice seeks me, this one walks the false path of form and cannot see the Tathagata. You cannot see the formless by means of a form-based identity. Subhuti, if a man should declare that the Tathagata is the one who comes or goes or sits or lies, form-based because it's the body, he does not understand the meaning of my teaching, because the teaching is eternal and thus formless. Why? The Tathagata does not come from anywhere, x1, and does not depart to anywhere, still x1. Therefore he is called the Tathagata. He is one with x1, right? One with the eternal. How does a man expound it for others? When one is not attached to form, it is of suchness remaining unmoved. Then it is the eternal still point, right? Not attached to form. All composite things in X3, created things, all created things are like a dream, a phantasm, a bubble, with a beginning and an end, and a shadow. All the created things in X3 are like a dewdrop and a flash of lightning. Now you see it, now you don't. They are thus to be regarded as not eternal or temporal. So I think that's pretty much it for today. I don't know if anybody's on the call. Nope. Anyway, so hopefully somebody will give me some feedback on it, and you're welcome to do it here. Text or leave a voicemail 1-941-462-3177, and again, all the symbols are copyright of Matthias Institute. And have a nice day.